Musketeers are these three guys that come up with this motto, and their motto is one for all and all for one. So really what we want to ask ourselves is what that motto was supposed to represent. Their motto is one for all and all for one, which means that they are loyal to each other, even though they have different spaces and different places, and they believe in themselves and each other's abilities, which makes them unstoppable force when they're together. So I think that is an incredible motto that you would want to utilize for your speech team. And how can we apply this motto to our speech team in order to have a unified team? And so I kind of wanted to go through. Now, you ask yourself, well, everybody has a different personality and everybody does a different event and everybody has, kind of their own interest. But how can we make a universal program that all students feel welcome? So it's not even just that we want everybody to be the same, but we want everybody to feel like they're part of the team. And I'm not talking about discrimination or when it comes to that sort of thing. What I'm talking about is alienating certain members on our speech team because first, we don't understand them, or second, we don't know how to relate to them. So what I want to do is I want to give us a couple of practices where we can incorporate every member of the team, whether we have the same. Sure, yeah, if you'd like to share it with your screen, certainly. So that way we can allow us to see the benefits. When we look at it, the students' benefits for having a unified team is that everyone is going to feel included, respected, and safe. That's certainly, to this day, we always want everybody to feel included. I was always taught, my mom always said, if you have purple hair, we're going to write you a speech about purple hair and you're going to present it. We always want to make sure that we can include every student, and having them be included and respected and safe means that they're going to trust us. So when we say, please, please jump up, down in the air, then they're going to jump and down in the air and they're going to trust that what we're telling them is actually going to be correct. We would never, put our kiddos in a situation where we think that they're not going to feel safe. We're going to remove the out of place feeling. So when we're unifying this team, what we're going to do is we're going to remove that out of place so everybody feels like, hey, this is where I'm supposed to belong, and which means that they're going to want to stick around. The last thing you want to do is have one person who's sitting off to the corner and they don't feel like they belong, so they go somewhere else.
So Katie, real quick, can you see the presentation?
I do. If you would go down to benefits of all inclusion speech team. Oh, up. There you go.
Okay, just tell me when to move it and I'll move it.
Thank you so much. Our desire to belong is primal. So if you ever go into a room and you think somebody's talking about you, that is a primal instinct. So everybody's going to have that. Well, if you are talking about me, or if you're not including me, then that's going to hurt my feelings. And students, they develop a sense of self-worth through others. So what we're going to do is we're going to include them. And while we're including them, we're actually building up their self-worth at the same time. So we are making them better human beings because they're on our speech team, which is a really good selling point when you're saying, you know what, I'm changing the world. Well, we really are, one person at a time. A richer club environment where members learn from each other's backgrounds and experiences is helpful. So somebody may come from a very artistic family and another person may come from a very rigid family, and the incorporation of these two students together could present itself to be like a really funny humor or like a really great duo. And you just never know until you put these two people into a different environment. For team benefits, you're accessing a large pool of volunteers. So the more people that we have on the team, the more people we're going to be able to have volunteer parents, volunteer neighbors, volunteer grandma and grandpas, and that's going to allow us to not struggle when we're looking for judging. and that's going to help us in the long run. Increase membership and increase revenue. So if you are having a membership fees for these students, that's going to bring in a larger budget for your speech team in the long run. So the more people you have, and you hate to say it's about the money, but when you have to go on overnight trips, the money is part of it. Accessing a new range of skills and abilities on and off the field. So really that one is, you are going to get all of these kids who are going to learn from each other. They're going to learn how to do faces. They're going to learn how to work together, and they're going to be and better off in the long run. And sending these kids out into the community, they're definitely going to be well-rounded. The club truly represents their community. So you're going to have students who have been around all different types of people, whether that's, somebody who likes to play sports, whether that's somebody who comes from a impoverished neighborhood, that's somebody, you know what I mean? So it's just including everybody in that community, and it's going to represent that. Stronger and healthy, more supportive local communities. If you are including more people, the community is going to see that it's a larger outreach, and essentially they're going to be willing to help you. And you're going to have more people than just everybody doing debate or everybody doing public address. And maybe you're going to get a lot of other people who are going to join in. And people love to see humors, and people love to see duos, but public address, I really think that the community would relate to, because they're going to have to give a speech similar to that. And so those are the kind of kids that we want to have on the team as well. Fred, if you could move to the next slide. Shift your mindset. So this is kind of where we're going to start talking about, as coaches, how can we accomplish benefiting ourselves, benefiting our students, as well as benefiting our community. The next one, please. So I'm going to give you a scenario. What if the worst fear turns out to be true? If you wake up on a Saturday morning, dress up in a suit, board a bus, and head out to an all-day to a foreign high school. On top of that, you are sitting alone while the rest of the team is playing cards, talking, and walking around the halls before the rounds. So right now we have a teachable moment to where we're going to decide whether we're going to make them do one of two things. We are going to make that student go up, probably his first tournament, go all to all the rest of these teams who've been there before, and says, you know what, I love being part of this team. Recently I've been feeling left out, and whenever we're at speech meets, and I don't see any of our students doing that, when it's their first or second tournament, saying, I have no idea what to do, I'm a novice, or this is probably something that's out of my comfort zone to begin with. Or we can teach the whole team about inclusion. And that's what I think, that is, you're not going to get that left alone feeling if we're teaching them off the bat how to include everybody on the team. Okay, next slide, please. What we're going to do is, are you communicating fairly and effectively? Is everyone receiving the same message? So if you have these star team members, are they becoming you're communicating gurus? Are they the ones who are going to come up to you and say, hey, what can I do? But you're really leaving these other team members off by themselves. So are you communicating with everybody on the team? If not, why aren't you including them? Or is there a message that maybe you can send to everybody? There's hundreds of tools to making everybody communicate with students easy. Emailing everybody at the same time, reaching out to them by phone. I know a lot of students can't put their phones down during the school day, so I mean, they could probably receive a text saying, hey, I'm glad you're part of the team. Is there something else that I can do for you? But it might be an idea to utilize social media. This year, Warsaw will be creating a Facebook page, and that's going to allow all of our team members to kind of meet up with each other, know who's on the team, and kind of develop a camaraderie that way. It's almost similar to like a group chat that you and your friends would do. It just allows us to kind of build that, and if other teams have that, that's wonderful, because it allows them to connect with each other without you having to hold their hands, so they kind of feel like they've done the camaraderie on their own. No matter what the communication tool you choose, make sure the team has access to it and can use it effectively. So if you have a group text, or if you have a group chat, or if you have a group Facebook page, Instagram, Snapchat, make sure that everybody is included. And that one's really hard because some of them might feel out of place. But if you open them with welcoming arms, then I think that they're going to be more apt to utilize those, and it's going to make them feel included. Okay, the next one, please. Stop making all the decisions. This one's a really hard one for me. I'm a mother of four, so if I tell somebody to go clean the house, I kind of utilize my power, and I say, you do this, and you do this, and you do this, and then it's kind of my decision on what we're doing. I decide my weekly schedule. I decide what we're making for dinner. But when it comes to our speech students, we kind of have to give up the power and give it to the people. By people, we actually mean our students. So you need to delegate some of the decision making to your students. It doesn't have to be big decisions like where we're going to stay at what hotel, or who's going to be in what event. But by giving team members a little choices and allowing them to include everybody on the team, it makes them feel like they're actually the ones who are keeping things together. Um, Also, I'm surprised by how many great ideas my students have. It's a fresh pair of eyes when you're making a decision, and they have really good ideas. Sometimes you have to just go through the through some of the teenage jargon, but they really do come up with some great ideas that you necessarily wouldn't have thought before. An example of some decisions that they could make is like a team dinner party, group practice schedule. Maybe they want to do a group practice schedule before one of our small meets as opposed to one of our bigger meets as well, and they can orchestrate that. Decorating lockers, doing encouraging notes to their peers. Um, they could be part of a rally. I know we're an affiliated club now, and we actually get to be part of pep rallies. So I allow my students to kind of take over what they're going to do for the pep rally and how they're going to try to encourage kids to join the speech team. So they've really taken that part as we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing it on our own. Next slide, please. Encouraging the less confident. That's without being said. I think there are some people who have big personalities, and there are some people who don't. The less confident, the people who are confident sometimes need reminders that if you have this big personality, why don't you give somebody a chance who is usually not in the limelight. If you see someone with a great potential, but they're reluctant to get stuck into something, even if that's a team meeting, doesn't mean they're a bad team member. Just try to work a little bit closer with them and encourage them a little bit more than you would the people who are always in the spotlight. Make them feel included by giving them maybe a little extra nudge, and that might be an encouraging note that you send out yourself saying, I don't know if I've told you this today, but I'm really proud of you. And that kind of gives them that extra security that, we are part of this team. Okay, the next slide, please. Giving credit where it's due. Praise makes all the difference. Everybody loves a pat on the back. If someone is doing well, don't let that well done go unmissed. If someone's going over and above for practices or we're helping the team, let them know. Um, I can tell you that my brother Greg was a huge speech team fan. Um, he didn't necessarily place at every meet, but he was always there supporting everybody else. So he's the type of person that you want to have on your team because it's going to give everybody else an extra nudge to feel good. And nothing brings together a team and motivates them like a little bit of praise. Sorry. I've been going a little bit today. So, all right, next slide, please. I am only a humor coach. So this would go out to somebody who has a favorite that they like to coach. I think that if you are really good at humor or you're really good at drama, I think that that's an excellent use of your skills. If you could go to the next page. 100% chance that there is 100% chance that you will be judging an event other than the events you only coach. So you always go into the judging pool hoping that you get the the event that you really like, but unfortunately, that's not always the case. You are probably going to be in a round of something that you haven't coached for a long time, and you're probably not familiar with the rules, or maybe it's a different event that you're used to. And I can tell you, when I came back to coaching, duo was a completely different event. So when I originally got into that event and judged it, I was like, what a, though they're breaking the rules, you know what I mean? And so if I hadn't been there for a long time, or if I hadn't, if I hadn't looked at the rules, I would say, well, that they're not doing it correctly. You have to stay modern with what you're doing. So I think maybe taking a time to maybe doing a couple of extra slots with other students and other events is going to keep you fresh. And while you're judging, it's going to give you that new perspective. Next slide, please. Why should you branch out and coach all events? You will not isolate a student who wants to work with you. This is part of the camaraderie. I know that I have students who want to practice, and if you are only a humor coach and you are wanting another student wants to come work with you, it's really hard. You say, no, that's not my expertise, or no, that's not what I'm coaching. That kind of sends that student away. Like, are they saying that because they don't want to work with me? And so I think that this would open up another way to communicate with the student, or even form a bond with the student. And you never know, they could be a humor just waiting to happen, and they just happen to be in another event. You will stay up to date on more events, especially if you're judging those events, like I had previously stated. You will have a student who will need to switch events for sectionals, and it will be easier for you to transition with your student. I gave you an example on discussion to extent. So we already have all of our discussion students scheduled. We need to transfer this to the other one. You already have a camaraderie. You can coach with that student, and it's going to make it easier for both of you to transition, especially for practices and not having to start completely over for both of you. And you may bring a fresh outlook to this new event. Poetry and prose and poi, they kind of are weaving in a little bit together. And with poi and poetry, if you haven't coached those events, that might be something that you really think, wow, I should have thought about that sooner. I really have a couple of great ideas that maybe haven't been seen in that event. So that's going to open up a brand new spectrum of pieces that students will have that they probably wouldn't have had access to before. Okay, next slide, please. Class representatives, next slide, thank you. This will allow elected students to empower other students. Warsaw did this year. We have representatives in all 4 classes, and not needless to say, we have had recruiting like crazy. One person even holds up her certificate showing that she is the class representative, just so it shows you that she feels a little bit of power. And I think she really feels included, because it's not somebody that you would normally give, she doesn't get high grades or high mics, or she's just not in any sports. And so I think that was just a way for her to feel like, you know what, somebody sees that I'm doing a good job. Next slide. Okay, discussion topic. What do you do when a coach's personality clashes with the students? So this is one that I really struggle with, because I know that I have a very dominant personality. I know that's a shocker for anybody who's known me since high school, but I really have been. My mom always said that I've been the same person since 3 years old. And that was when I could really just take off and boss people around. So now that I'm older, and I have somebody maybe who's a little bit timid, or I have somebody who has the same personality as me, and I clash, what am I supposed to do with this student now? So now, when you clash with somebody, you feel like, you know what, I don't want to work with them any longer. And sometimes I get to that point and I put my hands up and run and walk away and say, you know what, maybe tomorrow. But next slide. Um, how to mend this clash, and trying to give them an insight into their own behavior isn't going to work. It's really hard to accept when somebody says you're wrong, and I'm going to make you see why you're wrong, or I'm going to make you understand how you're behaving badly. And that usually falls on deaf ears and likely makes things worse. I can tell you 100% if somebody tells me wrong, I have a 10-point debate on why I'm right. And so that's not really going to help me. And it's not really going to help the situation. So sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, you know what, you and I don't have the same personality, but I think that we can do some really great things as a speech coach and speech student. So I think the proper correction would be, I'm going to prepare a plan for what practice is going to include. I think this is going to eliminate some of the him ha. It's going to eliminate some of the moments where we can maybe sense some tension. We're going to go right down this list, and then we'll be done for practice there. Avoid personal topics. I know sometimes students want you to be their counselor instead, but I think that sometimes you just have to set personalities aside and say, you know what, we're just going to work on our piece today. Stick to the script and prepare homework tasks so the student can do outside of their practice. That means if you think that they're doing a facial feature wrong, and you want to try to correct them, saying, you know what, I want you to do that face 10 times in the mirror, and then come back to me, explain me why you're doing that. And maybe that will eliminate some of the tension. Secure the confidence in your student. Don't ever tell them, because I don't like your personality, I don't want you to be around me. I think you have to say, you and I are a lot alike, and good for you, and just say, you know what, I commend you for being you, but I don't think that we can continue the way that we're doing. So let's try something different up and switch it up a little bit. And never make your student feel like they're backed into a corner. I think we've had that one person who takes things a little too personally, and we just have to take a step back and say, you know what, maybe I am being harsh, or maybe we need to stop practice for today, and just let things just go. And I think that's going to make it a lot easier in the long run for your sanity, as well as the student, to know that they do still have people who care. It's just a little bit overwhelming sometimes. Next slide, please. So now that I've talked about some of the elements, I think it's really going to be easy for you to see, not all for some. So we're not working for just those few prodigies who just came from underneath the rock and are going to go to nationals. We're really working for every single person, for all of our people to become one team. And I think the more that we get into thinking about things and allowing the students to be, empowering to other students, and really their peers are going to respond better to each other. I think that that's really going to, in the long run, make it necessary for students to be part of a team. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer questions. But I think that this is also, an excellent way. I wanted to avoid, I didn't want anybody to think that it was just about discrimination or things like that. I wanted people to know that it was about, just unifying a team no matter who you are.